Hello, my dear audience and subscribers. Welcome to episode 2 of Seoul Vendetta. If you haven't watched episode 1 yet, click on the link above to catch up before diving into today's episode. Now let's begin. That same morning, after leaving the Zhao mansion, Mrs. Park's black car glided through the gates of the Prime Minister's residence. The guards bowed as she passed, though their eyes betrayed unease. Everyone knew she wasn't a woman to be trifled with. Prime Minister Kim stood by the tall windows of his study when she entered, hands clasped behind his back. He turned slightly, his expression icy. "I assume this is not a social call, Madam Park. You only come when you want something." Mrs. Park smiled faintly, unbothered. "And you only pretend to be busy when you're cornered, Mr. Kim." He scowled but gestured toward a chair. She sat gracefully, crossing one leg over the other, every movement deliberate. "I want Zhao Hyunsik's second son appointed as chief of the national police," she said plainly. Kim's brow furrowed. "Absolutely not. That man's family, rotten to the core." "I will not." "Mr. Kim," she interrupted softly, "you might want to reconsider before finishing that sentence." Her words carried a quiet warning. With a subtle nod, she signaled Mr. Choi, who stepped forward and placed a sleek tablet on the desk. Kim's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" "Just a reminder," Mrs. Park said, leaning back in her chair. Mr. Choi pressed play. The video was brief, just long enough to destroy his career, perhaps even his life. It showed him raping a female assistant, then killing her, and ordering her disposal in a hotel room. He slammed a hand against the desk as the footage ended. How did you get this?" Mrs. Park didn't flinch. "Does it matter?" His jaw clenched, fury and panic warring behind his eyes. "You're blackmailing a sitting prime minister." She tilted her head, smiling sweetly. "Blackmail is such an ugly word. I prefer persuasion." Her tone hardened. "If you don't approve this appointment, that video goes public. So tell me, Mr. Kim, what's it going to be?" The Prime Minister's glare could have cut glass, but he was trapped. He exhaled shakily, the fight draining from him. "Fine, but the video gets deleted." Mrs. Park's smile widened. "Of course. You have my word." He picked up his phone, voice clipped. "Prepare the documents to authorize Zhao Hyunsik's second son as National Chief of Police. Effective immediately." Within minutes, the papers were ready. Kim signed them with a tight jaw, refusing to meet her gaze. Mrs. Park rose, smoothing the front of her blazer. She extended a hand. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Kim." He hesitated, then took it briefly, his touch cold. As she walked toward the door, Kim's glare followed her until the doors closed behind her. "Viper," he muttered under his breath. Outside, Mrs. Park slid into the back seat of her car, composure flawless. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "Mr. Zhao," she said smoothly. "It's done. Your son's appointment will be announced within the hour." A low chuckle rumbled through the receiver. "You're efficient, Madam Park." Her lips curved. "Just make sure our enemies are dealt with permanently." She ended the call, leaned back, and looked out the window as the city blurred past, her reflection smiling faintly in the glass. Exactly 1 hour later, the press gathered at the Blue House Press Hall. Cameras flashed, microphones pointed forward, and journalists murmured in anticipation. Prime Minister Kim stepped up to the podium, his expression composed though faint traces of unease lingered in his eyes. He adjusted the microphone and began. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to announce that Mr. Zhao Miho has been appointed as the new National Chief of Police for this country." The room erupted into a buzz of questions. Hands shot up instantly. "Prime Minister, what influenced this sudden appointment?" one reporter called out. Kim forced a polite smile. "Mr. Zhao has demonstrated exceptional leadership and integrity throughout his service. The government has full confidence in his ability to lead the national police with honor." Another journalist stepped forward, eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "Sir, there have been past allegations concerning the Zhao family's ties to organized crime. What do you say about that?" Kim's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Unfounded rumors. This administration does not make decisions based on gossip. Mr. Zhao Miho's record speaks for itself." Cameras clicked rapidly as he concluded. "That will be all for now. Thank you." He left the stage swiftly, ignoring the barrage of follow-up questions. At the Busan police station where Zhao Miho worked, the television in the main office played the morning news. The minister's voice echoed through the room as he made the announcement. Effective immediately, Officer Zhao Miho has been appointed as the new National Chief of Police. For a moment, silence hung thick in the air. Every officer in the room froze, their eyes fixed on the screen in disbelief. Then came the murmurs, low, uneasy whispers rippling across the office. Zhao Miho sat at his desk, expression unreadable, though a faint, smug smile tugged at his lips. His colleagues exchanged glances, some shaking their heads. They all knew the truth. Zhao Miho didn't deserve this. In the chief's office, the man himself sat watching the same broadcast. His jaw tightened, and his grip on the pen in his hand grew so tense that it suddenly snapped in two. Ink splattered across the papers on his desk. He didn't say a word, but the fury in his eyes said enough. While chaos unfolded across Seoul's political circles, the underground garage beneath Adrian Lee's headquarters thrummed with quiet tension. Adrian walked towards his garage, the low hum of conversation dying instantly. Clad in a tailored black suit that hugged his tall frame, his tie loosened just enough to suggest arrogance, he exuded danger and control. But his eyes were cold. He had just watched the Prime Minister's broadcast, the one announcing Zhao Hyunsik's second son as the new national chief of police, and every muscle in his jaw tightened with restrained fury. Natalya followed close behind, her dark jeans and leather jacket blending her into the shadows. Her sharp gaze swept over the garage like a hunter scanning for traps. As they approached the lead car, a bodyguard hurried forward to open the passenger door. Natalya froze. Something caught her eye, a faint metallic glint beneath the seat. Her instincts screamed. "Lee!" she shouted. She lunged, shoving him hard to the ground, just as an ear-splitting explosion ripped through the garage. The car detonated in a blaze of fire and steel. The shockwave slammed into them, flinging bodies and shattering glass. Flames roared to life, swallowing 3 more cars in an instant. Heat rolled through the air like a physical force. Alarms blared, sprinklers hissed. Men shouted orders that were drowned beneath the inferno's roar. Beneath the rain of debris, Natalya lay sprawled over Adrian, shielding him with her body. Smoke curled around them, the floor trembling beneath their weight. When the roar faded to a ringing silence, Adrian blinked, his gaze finding her face, ash-streaked, eyes fierce, lips trembling just inches from his. The flicker of firelight painted her in gold and red. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. When she tried to speak, her lips brushed his, soft, accidental, but charged. Neither moved. Adrian's lips curved into a faint smirk. "If you want to keep kissing me," he murmured, "you can just continue. I will truly cooperate." Natalya exhaled sharply, rising off him and brushing ash from his suit. "You're welcome for saving your life." He stood, adjusting his cufflinks with infuriating calm. I should thank you properly then." She shot him a warning look, though a flicker of amusement touched her mouth. "Focus." Adrian chuckled low. "Always." Then his tone shifted, sharp, lethal. 10 minutes. Find the bastard who planted that bomb." The command cut through the chaos. His men scattered. 9 minutes later, 2 guards dragged in a trembling mechanic. His hands were slick with oil and fear. "Boss, please," he stammered. "I didn't mean." Adrian didn't let him finish. He grabbed a guard's pistol, raised it, and fired. The gunshot cracked like thunder. The man collapsed instantly, the echo rolling through the smoke-filled garage. Natalya didn't flinch. Mercy wasn't part of their world. Adrian slid the gun back into the guard's holster and turned to her. "Was it Zhao Hyunsik?" she asked, voice steady. "It wasn't Zhao Hyunsik," he replied coldly. Natalya frowned. "Then who?" Adrian pulled out his phone. His face hardened, eyes dark as he dialed a number. The line clicked. "Uncle," he said, voice calm but edged with steel. "You and that little boy of yours just landed in South Korea after years of hiding, and already you're playing games. You want a war." A beat of silence. "Then I'll meet you soon, with my thank you gift. Be ready." He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket as though nothing had happened. Then he looked at Natalya, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Looks like after we're done with the DeLucas," he said quietly, "you'll finally meet with my enemies in the family." Natalya's gaze lingered on the flames still licking the walls. Her expression was unreadable. "Can't wait," she murmured. At his uncle's villa in Seoul, Mr. Song paced like a caged predator. The call with his nephew had ended, but the anger lingered, hot and humming beneath his skin. With a sharp, furious motion, he hurled his phone across the marble floor. It shattered into glittering fragments. His gaze snapped to the trembling man kneeling before him. The man's knees buckled, his mouth opened as if to plead. Before a single plea escaped, Mr. Song drew his pistol and fired. The shot cracked through the room. The man collapsed, blood spreading across the polished tiles. Mr. Song's face stayed locked, stone and unreadable. No remorse, no hesitation. The door opened. His son entered, 30 tall, impeccably dressed. He paused when he saw the body, eyes narrowing. "Still alive?" he asked, voice low and curious. Mr. Song holstered the pistol with a single motion and exhaled. "For now," he said, bitterness sharpening the words. The son's expression went harder. "Then we'll finish what needs finishing." Mr. Song allowed a faint, cold smirk. "Exactly what I was thinking." Back at the garage, Adrian and Natalia took another car brought by his men, and the two headed toward the secluded location where the meeting with the Italian mafia boss, Duca, was to be held. Natalia gripped the steering wheel firmly, the hum of the engine filling the silence between them. After a few moments, she glanced sideways at Adrian, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Why are you enemies with Zhao Hyunsik?" she finally asked. Adrian leaned back in his seat, his gaze fixed on the dark road ahead. "Hyunsik was my father's lieutenant," he began, his voice calm but heavy. "He earned my father's trust, and then he betrayed him. He sold information to our enemies, led them right to our doorstep. Because of him, my parents and little sister were killed." Natalia's brows furrowed, the faintest gasp escaping her. "You saw it happen?" Adrian shook his head slowly. "No. I was told by Mr. Duca himself. My father sent me to stay with the Duca family in Italy when I was only 5, just before Zhao joined him. I never saw what happened, but I've lived with the truth my whole life." The car fell silent again. After a while, Natalia spoke softly. "And your uncle? Why does he want you dead?" Adrian's expression hardened. "Because he believes my father's empire should have been his. But as long as I'm alive, that dream of his can never come true." Natalia glanced at him, and for the first time, she saw not the powerful man everyone feared, but the orphan boy beneath the armor. When Adrian Lee and Natalia arrived at the grand estate recently purchased by Mr. Duca in Seoul, the heavy iron gates swung open with mechanical precision. A long driveway stretched ahead, flanked by towering Italian cypress trees swaying gently in the breeze. Security guards in black suits stood at every turn, silent and alert, the quiet embodiment of power. At the entrance, an elderly butler stepped forward. His graying hair and kind eyes softened the otherwise intimidating air of the mansion. "Welcome home, Senior Lee," he greeted with a respectful bow. Adrian's lips curved faintly. "It's been a while, Pietro." Inside, the marble hall gleamed under golden chandeliers. The sound of laughter echoed from down the corridor, light and familiar. "Adrian." He turned just in time to see Marie Duca, the mafia boss's fiery daughter, rushing toward him. She threw her arms around him before he could speak. "It's been years," she said, pulling back to study him. "You've changed." Adrian chuckled softly. "You haven't." Still dramatic as ever. Marie smirked, then her attention shifted to the woman beside him. "And who's this?" "This is Natalia," Adrian said smoothly. "My driver." Marie's brow arched, a teasing grin tugging at her lips. "Driver, huh? You don't look like someone who can protect my brother if things turn ugly." Natalia's voice was calm, steady. "I can protect him." Marie's grin widened. "Then prove it." She stepped back, cracking her knuckles with playful defiance. "Fight me. Let's see what you've got." Natalia's gaze narrowed, though a flicker of amusement sparked in her eyes. "Fine." At that moment, Mr. Duca entered, a man in his 50s with black hair, sharp features, and the quiet authority of someone used to command. He paused, taking in the sight, then burst into hearty laughter. "Ah, my daughter never changes," he said, glancing at Adrian. "Seems you'll have some entertainment before business begins." Adrian leaned casually against a marble column, watching intently as the two women squared off. The moment Marie moved, the air shifted. She attacked first, quick, confident, but Natalia dodged effortlessly, countering with precision. Every strike, every block came with chilling control. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. Her form reminded him of Park Jihoon. For nearly an hour, the two fought, fists snapping through the air, feet sliding across polished marble. Sweat glistened under the chandelier's glow. Neither woman backed down until, with one swift motion, Natalia disarmed Marie and pinned her to the ground. For a moment, silence. Then Marie laughed breathlessly. "You're good. Better than I expected." Natalia extended a hand to help her up, a faint smile tugging her lips. "You're not bad yourself." Mr. Duca clapped, laughter rumbling from his chest. "That's enough, girls. I think she's proven she can protect her boss." Marie brushed her hair from her face, grinning. Come on, Natalia. Take me for a drive while my father and your boss talk business. Natalia turned to Adrian. He met her gaze and gave a small nod of approval. Go ahead, he said quietly. Natalia nodded once. All right, let's go, she said, following Marie toward the exit. As the two women disappeared down the hall, Adrian turned back to Mr. DeLuca. The warmth faded from his expression, replaced by cold focus. The sun painted Seoul in soft gold as Natalia and Marie sped down the Han River Highway. The black Maserati purred beneath them like a tamed beast, its engine's deep growl harmonizing with the wind rushing past. Every turn Natalia took was sharp, deliberate, the precision of a woman who never lost control. Marie leaned back in the passenger seat, laughter spilling from her lips as the city blurred around them. You drive like you own the road. Natalia's lips curved faintly. When I'm behind the wheel, I do. Marie threw her head back, her hair whipping in the wind. No wonder Adrian hired you. He surrounds himself with people who have no fear. Natalia didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on the road. After a beat of silence, Marie's tone shifted, quieter, more curious. Tell me something, Natalia. Why are you really working for Adrian Lee? Natalia's grip on the steering wheel tightened just slightly. For a moment, only the low rumble of the car filled the space between them. Then she said, her voice calm but edged with quiet fire. Revenge. Marie tilted her head, interest flickering in her eyes. Revenge. Natalia's gaze didn't waver. Let's just say, there are people who want to erase me, and they've aligned themselves with Lee's enemies. Adrian has the means to help me destroy them. For a few seconds, Marie studied her in silence. Beneath Natalia's composed exterior, she sensed something darker. Old pain, unhealed wounds, and memories too heavy to speak of. Finally, she gave a faint, understanding smile. Then I hope you get it, she said softly. Revenge, I mean. Natalia glanced sideways, a flicker of a smirk tugging at her lips. I will. The rest of the drive passed in silence, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable but heavy with unspoken truths. Two women, bound by power, danger, and their own forms of loyalty. When they returned, the meeting between Mr. DeLuca and Adrian had just ended. The courtyard was still, the faint scent of grass lingering in the afternoon air. Mr. DeLuca stood near the terrace, his expression composed yet thoughtful, while Adrian, hands in his pockets, carried the quiet stiffness of someone just handed dangerous news. Marie's voice broke the tension as she approached her father. Papa, I've decided. I want to stay in Seoul for a while. Mr. DeLuca's one eyebrow arched. Seoul? Are you certain, Carmia? This city doesn't have the charm of Rome. I know, Marie said with a playful smile. But I like it here. It's alive. And besides, she turned to Adrian, eyes glinting mischievously, I'd like to keep an eye on my dear brother. Adrian chuckled, shaking his head. You'll get bored in a week. Marie smirked. We'll see about that. Mr. DeLuca sighed, but the fondness in his tone betrayed him. Fine. You can stay. But don't cause trouble, Marie. I never do, she said, grinning, before turning to Natalia. Looks like you're stuck with me for a while. Natalia gave a small, knowing grin. I've handled worse. Their laughter mixed with the sound of rustling leaves, a rare moment of lightness amid the shadows closing in. At Zhao Hyunsik's estate, the morning's light did little to soften the chill in the rooms. He sat behind a heavy desk carved from dark wood. The map of his holdings spread like a stain beneath a brass lamp. When his assistant entered and bowed, Hyunsik didn't bother with pleasantries. Call the assassins, he ordered, voice low and controlled. Tonight, at her apartment. Make sure they kill Lee's driver, before they bring me her head. Madam Park has paid handsomely for it. After that, we focus on Adrian. The assistant bowed again, words swallowed, and left the room to carry out the order. Hyunsik picked up his phone and dialed Mrs. Park. His tone was businesslike as he reported the plan. My men will take care of Natalia tonight. Expect news by morning. On the other end of the line, Mrs. Park's response was a soft, satisfied chuckle. Good, she said. The city shimmered under the harsh Seoul sun as Adrian Lee's black convoy sliced through traffic, heading toward his uncle's mansion. The tinted cars moved in tight formation, a display of power and precision. He had called his men immediately he left DeLuca's mansion. Inside the lead vehicle, silence hung thick between Adrian and Natalia. Adrian leaned back in his seat, his gaze fixed on her reflection in the window before he finally spoke. Who is Park Jihoon to you? He asked, his tone measured but edged with curiosity. The way you fought with Marie today, it was the same. Calm, precise, no wasted movement. Jihoon fights like that. Natalia's eyes flicked toward him briefly, then back to the road. Jihoon was the one who saved me from the streets, she said quietly. He took me in, sent me to school, and trained me himself. When he thought I was strong enough, he let me go. Adrian studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. And now, he asked, why did you really accept my offer to become my driver? Her fingers tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Because I need you, she said flatly. You're the only one with enough power to help me destroy Madame Park and her son. They're working with the Zhao family now, your enemies as well. Adrian's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. So that's what this is, he murmured. Then his voice dropped, calm but possessive. Listen carefully, Natalya. Since you're working for me, you're mine now. Not Jihoon's, not anyone else's. Get that in your head. Natalya glanced at him from the corner of her eye, a faint smirk playing on her lips. Understood, she said, her voice smooth and fearless. The late afternoon sun bled into the sky, staining the clouds crimson as Adrian Lee's convoy roared up the long, winding driveway to his uncle's mansion. The first car came to an abrupt halt before the gates, and before the guards could react, the silence shattered. Gunfire erupted. Adrian's men moved like shadows, efficient and merciless. The front guards fell before they could even raise their rifles. Smoke filled the air as the rest of the convoy surged forward, men pouring out with weapons raised. Within minutes, the once proud mansion was reduced to chaos. Blood stained the marble steps, and the heavy scent of gunpowder hung in the air. Screams echoed down the corridors, then faded into silence. Adrian moved through it all like a storm in a tailored suit, his expression unreadable, his every step deliberate. He didn't need to shout commands. His men knew their roles, their loyalty absolute. By the time he reached the grand living room, the carnage was done. The room, once a shrine to wealth and arrogance, now reeked of fear. Mr. Song, his uncle, stood frozen near the center, his face pale, while his 30-year-old son knelt beside him, clutching a pistol with trembling hands. Around them, a handful of terrified guards pointed their weapons uncertainly, outnumbered and outmatched. Adrian stepped forward, his gun loose at his side, his smirk razor-sharp. Natalia flanked him, her presence silent but deadly. Well, Adrian drawled, his voice low and dangerous. Just this, and you and your son are trembling like flies. He tilted his head slightly, eyes glinting with disdain. Don't ever think of taking me out to gain my empire again. Before his uncle could speak, Adrian raised his gun and fired. The bullet tore through his cousin's leg, sending him crashing to the ground with a scream that echoed through the hall. The older man's face twisted with shock and fury, but he didn't dare move. Adrian holstered his weapon, his expression calm, almost amused. He turned to his men. We're done here. Without another glance, Adrian walked out of the mansion, Natalia following close behind. His men moved in formation, leaving behind a trail of silence and blood. The engines of the convoy roared to life once more, and within moments they vanished down the road, leaving the estate shrouded in smoke and humiliation. Inside, Mr. Song stood trembling, rage twisting his features. His hands clenched into fists as he stared at his wounded son writhing on the floor. Useless, he spat, his voice breaking the tense quiet. All of you are useless. His shout echoed against the blood-stained walls. Lee, he snarled, his voice low and venomous. You will pay for this humiliation. He turned sharply to one of his remaining men. Get him treated, he ordered, nodding toward his injured son. As the man hurried to obey, Mr. Song stormed out of the room, fury burning in his chest. Behind him, his son's eyes blazed with the same hatred, a reflection of his father's vengeance. And in that moment, the Song family's thirst for retribution was sealed, setting the stage for another war that would soon tear through Seoul's criminal underworld. The night air in Seoul was thick with unease as Natalya pulled into the small parking lot outside her apartment. The city hummed quietly below her, its lights flickering like restless ghosts. She had just dropped Adrian Lee at his base, and for the first time that day, the silence felt wrong. Too still. Too heavy. Her instincts whispered warnings, that sixth sense sharpened by years of survival. She killed the engine of her car when she parked in her usual spot, but didn't move immediately. Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, scanning the shadows. Nothing. Yet something in her gut told her the night wasn't done with her. She stepped out of the car and hurried into the building, her hand brushing the small pistol holstered at her thigh beneath her jacket. The hallway leading up to her apartment was dim, the flickering light above casting uneven shadows on the peeling walls. She unlocked her door, switched on the lights, and walked toward the window. That's when she saw them. Several black cars had pulled up quietly across the street. Men in suits, too disciplined to be ordinary thugs, fanned out, their movements sharp and coordinated. Her pulse spiked, but her expression remained unreadable. Calmly, she switched off the lights and moved into the corner, waiting. A heartbeat later, the door exploded inward. The assassins flooded in like shadows, guns raised. The first man through the door didn't even finish his step before Natalya shot him clean through the head. His body hit the floor, and she was already moving, rolling behind the kitchen counter as bullets shredded the air. She fired twice, both shots precise. 2 more men dropped. The rest spread out, circling her position. One of them kicked over a table, shouting orders in Chinese. Natalya snatched a knife from the counter and hurled it with perfect accuracy. It embedded itself deep in the man's throat. He collapsed, choking. She grabbed his weapon mid-drop and spun, using another assassin as a shield. Bullets tore into his back as she fired over his shoulder, her eyes cold and steady. But there were too many. A flash of pain ripped through her side as a bullet grazed her ribs, hot blood seeping through her jacket. She stumbled, gasping, but didn't stop. She shot the man who fired it, then another who lunged at her with a blade. She reloaded, breathing hard, pressing her back against the wall. Her vision blurred, the pain pulsing at her side. She was bleeding fast. A final wave of men charged in, and Natalya braced herself. Then suddenly, the door behind them burst open again. Gunfire thundered through the hall. Jihoon and his men stormed in with ruthless precision, cutting down the remaining assassins in seconds. The last body hit the floor with a dull thud. Smoke hung thick and acrid in the air, the silence after the storm almost deafening. Jihoon stepped through the doorway, his face carved with tension, his eyes locking on Natalya slumped against the wall, blood staining her shirt. Natalya! She tried to speak, but her lips barely moved. Her gun slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor. Jihoon was at her side in an instant, his arms catching her before she could fall completely. "Stay with me," he muttered, his voice low but urgent. He turned sharply to one of his men. "Call Dr. Han now. Tell him I'm bringing in a patient, and so a room should be prepared." The man nodded and immediately made the call. Jihoon lifted Natalya into his arms, her head resting weakly against his shoulder. She was barely conscious, her breath shallow, blood trailing down his sleeve. As he carried her through the wrecked doorway, the smell of gunpowder and iron followed them into the night. Sirens wailed faintly somewhere in the distance, but Jihoon didn't care. His only thought was saving her. Thanks for watching episode 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more exciting episodes of Seoul Vendetta. See you in episode 3.